Hello, guys. Welcome to another episode of Ripster Daily Trade Recap and Teachings. All right, guys. Today was all right. It was not really the best day. I mean, there was some end of the day trades, earning plays. There were not much of the range. It was all right. Meme stocks were running up and down. So personally, it was kind of a slow day for me. But we didn't really have any crazy loser or anything like that. But definitely, there are a few things to recap today. We'll look at few of the setups, few of the plays in the community. So let's start. Before I start, just a quick introduction for anybody who's new to my YouTube, who's new to my Twitter, or who's new to our community. These trade recaps and teachings are from any trade ideas, any swing ideas, or any investment ideas that we discuss either on either I share on Twitter or I share with you guys on my YouTube or in the community trade ideas. We do not trade random. We have a repeatable trading and investing system that I've been using for many years. Thousands of traders use the system taught by me, and we use the system every day in our community. Every day before the market open, me and my team, we go through all the news sources and we create a game plan for the day. Game plan for the day was in front of you. There was not much today. There are few earnings plays like ONON, Baba, Home Depot, SCSTNE, Apple, NVDA, among others. And of course, we have our meme stocks. In addition to that, we also had what we call as my strategy that I did a webinar last Friday. That those are my day two, day three setups. There were definitely few movers on those setups. NVEX was one of them. We'll look at that how they panned out today and see. We'll review those as well. CVS was a kind of short on that, so we'll review those setups. In addition to the day two levels, we also share what we call as our daily levels on SPY, QQQ, IWM, and all the marketplace that we play every day. Boeing was a decent play on that today. So traders can take these levels and use these pivot levels to trade according to as per their system. So we are going to review these as well. So with all this game plan with us, we usually I'm on a voice first few hours on the market open, going through the market long or short, what's market showing us, and guiding the community. So that being said, let's go through each trade. I will show you my timestamped comments. A lot of my comments are on the voice, so I can't show you that. But we'll go through each setup and see what we learned today and how did we trade that. Let's look at the first play of the day. The first play of the day that I was focused on was ONON. Let's see what was the game plan on ONON. So ON was good earnings. Support was 33, resistance was 36. Bullish bias to long versus the clouds. So that was the plan, right? And let's go back. Let me go to the smaller time frame so that you guys can see it clearly what was happening. So as soon as the market was opened, I started a size in the amateur move. On the long side, but the amateur move failed, right? So I did a 36 tens. The amateur moved failed and it dipped back to the clouds. So I averaged down. So the best entry would have been this EMA cloud pullback, because if I because we always use these cloud pullbacks levels. Again, I was a part of the amateur move because I was expecting the continuation, but we did not see that continuation and market kind of pulled back right from that push, and it pulled back. So it pulled back from 35, from the opening price of 35 back to 33.50. So I told everybody to long it and also watch the pullbacks. So when it pulled back, I averaged down. I can show you on 3 minute time frame. It'll be more clearer to you guys. So if you see that it pulled back to 34 level, so 34 level. So the best entry was the pullback. If you entered the amateur move, then your entry was kind of bad. Anyways, I averaged down, and you can see failed amateur move. I'm using the 34.50 stop. So my stops were under this EMA clouds, and I added a little more. So that's what I told everybody, that I added a little more at 941. So I added a little more in 34 area, 34.50s, and then my average was a little lower. And then it was all about holding it with the patience, right? This was just with the shares for me. I was not trading any stock. And then you see bounce back from 34.50, reclaim the cloud, went back to 36 level. But the problem was there was a seller at 36 all day. So you can see seller here, seller here, seller here, seller here, right? So I was green when it moved back to 36 because average down. If I didn't take the amateur move, would have been much better green trade for me. But but that's fine. I like to trade the amateur small size. But then after that, we just had to hold it. We just had to hold it, and eventually the 36 level cleared. So look what I'm saying here. Rejecting 36, want to see the breakout. Still holding the trend, stops under 512 EMA cloud. So I put my stops under the 512 EMA cloud in case the candle closes or opens and closes below, then I would stop out. But luckily that it held the clouds and then it pushed. And then there was a 36 breakout and then it pushed towards 3640. So overall the trade was like, if I had a good entry, then it would have really good green, but made a decent like a dollar profit on that, on the ONN. But as you see, the plan was simple. The plan, it depends where you enter. If you entered in the morning, then your average is little high, you barely broke even by end of the day. If you really chase that highs, then that's a problem because you have to average down a lot more to even to break even, right? It kind of worked out. If I had to stop out, would be a good loss for me, but luckily it worked out because we follow the system. And we'll be watch on day 2 as well. I do like it, and I have a little bit still, so we'll watch how it works out tomorrow. Kind of worked out in the morning. Let's look at Baba next and see what was our plan on Baba and how did we trade Baba today. So Baba, post 86 profit drop, beats revenue, and it was bearish to neutral. So the plan was bearish to neutral. The support was 79, resistance was 80 to 80, and this was the resistance, but never really popped up, and it was bearish right at open. So that's what I told everybody. Bearish will watch the pops to short. Make sure you follow the short rules. If tries to base, be cautious for the B minus bounce. But in the morning it pushed into the 840s and then rejected, and then it broke the pre-market lows, confirming the short. And I said good short scalps 78.85 needs to break. So then it broke that 70.85, we broke that level, and then it flushed. So that was at 10 a.m. when I was talking about the bear flag, and then it flushed. Then it flushed a $1 for us, and we covered here. And my next target was 77. So my next target was 77, but it kind of bounced for 772. I was watching this 512s, and then it failed 512s, and finally it curled, and we closed the whole position. Right, so overall it was okay, dollar and a half profit, and the risk was around 60 cents. Again, this was, again, I did not trade any options on it. This was a short trade for me. So if I show you in the 3 minutes, you'll get more clarity. Why was it a short? I said short on the pops. So you wait for this pop, it's a better entry, and then if you short it at 79.80, then it went to 77.70. It was good, at least a $2 short trade there. If not a great entry, it still was a dollar 50 short. You just needed to have some patience in this short setup on Baba, and when Baba finally curls, you just get out, right? So nothing special, just some chump change win. It's all about your entry. Do not oversize. We were short at open, and and it gave a nice fade, and you make sure you cover your shorts on these flushes. So let's now talk about Tesla, right? So what was the plan on Tesla? So Tesla was in the morning was bullish, right? It was breaking our pivots. What were our pivots here? So the game plan and the pivots that I gave in the pre-market on Tesla were 173.75 and 175.40. So those were two pivots. So as soon as the market opens, right, it starts to break out of those pivots and pushing higher. And of course, it pushes into 10 a.m. and then it pulls back to 512 EMA clouds, and it held that EMA clouds. So it held that EMA clouds at at 10 a.m. because there was a resistance at 178. I told everybody that there's a resistance at 178, and then it held that. Then it held that 512 clouds and pushed again at 1058, and then it was a breaking out of the flag. And that's when I told everybody that's breaking out of the flag, and the 180 was my target, but again it stayed short like 50 cents of my target. And when it's breaking down here, you just get out. Again, not really a great action, but was a little choppy. So you, as long as you held the 512s, you do not stop out, then it was okay trade. But I don't really like this kind of moves. I want to see a better trend. But again, market was so choppy with Powell speaking today. None of the large caps gave us really any good moves. So that was a Tesla. So now let's look at SE. SE. So SE is also a long-term play, and let's go back to the guidance on SE. SE was 66 was support, resistance was 70, 10 at swing, bullish bias. I had a bullish bias, but it broke the clouds right at open, right? It breaks the 66 support, then it's a short, right? Because that's the level I gave in the pre-market. So once it breaks that, it's a short, it's a gap fill short. That's what I told everyone. It's a gap fill short. Gap fill short, room to 63.50, and it did touch my target. If it stayed under 63.50, it would have faded more. That's what I told everyone. But then it kind of swiped right back up. When you see that kind of hammer, you just get out. I did not get it a long, but I was able to manage the short side because when it fell down, SC and I was on the voice talking about it. If you see the 63.50 target, you take it, right? And it was breaking under the clouds, and then it turned bullish over the clouds, pushed over it. I was not able to take any entry, rejected the high resistance we talked about, and came back. So overall, it was good for a scalps. I mean, if you look at the range, it dipped to 63.50, pushes back to 70, and then comes back to 66. You see the morning 66 level was still a support, right? So look at the support level I was showing you here, 66, and exactly that's where it was bouncing, right? So the trades could have been the short at open, and I wouldn't take this long. Maybe when it pushes over the cloud, you long there, and your target should be 70, and then it comes back and you get out, and after that there was no trade there. So it's important to understand these levels. That's why I was saying a lot of choppy action today. There was no clear trend big winner that we are used to, but definitely you could manage if you manage your size and you gave attention to the levels I gave in the pre-market. You could have managed it well. All right, let's look at the meme stocks today. How did they do? AMC and GameStop, right? You saw that how we traded them yesterday. We had some lotto swings overnight on AMC and GameE. Both opened very nicely, profitable. The first thing I told everyone this morning was do not try to, do not try to long it, right? Look at my warnings. I gave the warnings right at the open. Big risk, huge gap. It's always my priority that my community is not trying to chase something and lose money, right? Bad setups. We don't want that. We were long AMC yesterday. That was fun. We were long GameE. That was fun. But today was not the time to risk on AMC and GameE. So that's my first warning. You can see that, right? And then it was bouncing off the cloud. Let's look at AMC first. It was bouncing off the clouds. I mean, you can scalp that. That's fine. But overall, the trend is bearish. So I was scalping puts personally. Overall, the trend was bearish, and the same on GameStop, right? Pulling to the clouds, trying to hold, and I was kept giving the warning: stay small, don't get carried away, stay small, right? So now, if you look at AMC, middle of the day, I was in and out of the puts because they were losing the values, right? Because AMC was fading, but they were losing the value. Because we respect our system. If system says bearish, we stay bearish. There was no, once AMC broke this 34.50, there was no long. You could scalp the puts like I was talking on the trading floor. You could scalp the puts, and I did tweet about the breakdown as well. Same for GameStop. This was a bear flag breakdown here. Actually, I traded on this breakdown. I traded the puts, and I did say that on the floor that I am, scalping GameE puts. I did tell the community that we were scalping the GameE puts on the trading floor. We were discussing when I'm on the live stream, because when this breaks from this 49 break, faded all the way to 36, and when AMC broke this 9, and it faded all the way to $6. So you don't long this setup, and of course it kind of bounced later in the day, but I was not really interested, but was surely covering the shorts because when it was reclaiming the clouds. So that was the plan and the guidance today all day. And I was like, you can see here, I was sharing with everyone that when the, it's breaking down, do not long. And then, we don't, in our community, we don't like get biased on anything, right? So we don't get biased. We trade the system, right? I covered my puts earlier on AMC, but I did scalp some on GME. So I just want to stress the fact that there was no longs here. There was no longs. There was not an A plus setup for long. It was a short setup. You maybe you don't. So that was a short, right? You were so there was no long. You could short here, but then here it was not clear. It was up and down, up and down. 10 psychological level on AMC was giving up, and then on GameStop 55 was kind of a risk. And once it breaks the bear flag, it's bearish. So that was our plan today. That was my guidance. I made sure I warned everybody to avoid trading any B plus setup and sorry any C minus setup. So that was my guidance. And then we did trade some other we did trade some other meme stocks, scalped some of this SPWR for the 5 psychological level to 560. And then we traded this penny stock. We are swinging it, actually it's kind of up for us. Maybe it gaps up tomorrow on the meme run, right? Again, with the system, the clouds, the 512 clouds, 3450 cloud bounce. So that's how you use the system to manage your risk on on the bearish day, right? Yesterday, a lot of people made money, but I'm sure a lot of people made money, lost money on GameStop and AMC today because of the bearish trend that we held all day, right? If you draw a trend line, you can tell that it was a bearish trend, right? It was a bearish trend. So you don't really want to get stuck in a bearish trend. There's a time to long, there's time to short. So that's why I'm stressing this. We don't get blind. Let's fin to it. There's a lot of people who will, blind trading, and they were just buy the dip, buy the dip. If you buy the dip, follow the system. Yes, I did tell everybody that it might bounce from this gap fill, this area. This was the support. It did bounce, but is that like an A plus setup? Not really. If you're an advanced trader, yes, you could scalp the bounce. And this was the yesterday's breakout where GameStop was bouncing, so you could scalp the bounce. But is it an A plus setup? Not really. It's a B minus C minus setup. The A plus setup would have been a short AMC and GME, and that if you could find at least, if there was not this big move, the options were not worth it. If you could find the shares, short the shares. GameStop definitely had a 10-point short, so that was a decent trade as well. So that was our guidance today on the meme stocks in the community. Hopefully this helped you. That just watch yesterday's recap and today's recap. You differentiate how we were long yesterday and how the memes were short and bearish today. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. If it's bullish, we stay bullish. If it's chop, we stay away. If it's bearish, we short. Let's look at VKTX. So VKTX was a day two loser today. I tried to long it, but in break 512 and then it break 3450. I took loss and moved on. I do have a swing, but I was also trying to do a day trade on that because of bouncing of the daily clouds, but did not work. So that was a loser for me and the community today. Let's look at some other trades from the morning when the market was bouncing. The few trades I was discussing in the morning when the market was pushing was NVDA. So NVIDIA, the trade was versus 900. You see the 1025. That's when we go over the clouds. We are pushing over the clouds, and that's where you long, and you put your stops on 900. If you kept your stops on 900, by end of the day, you made decent $10 to $15. We did pull back, but we did not break 512s. Your stops are 900. My target was 910 for the scalps. Then it pulled back, right? It was choppy here. You could stop out, but still it gave you nice push to 912s. But if you held, then it gave you 916 later in the day. And we'll talk about that big reversal that happened later in the day. Similar trade setup versus 150 psychological level was AMD. So that's what I said. Initially, no longs, right? In the morning, it's bearish. But when the market turned bullish at 1025s, then I said long versus 150. If market stays heavy, avoid the cloud pullback idea. So that was the idea. But market did bounce later in the day, and AMD gave a nice long versus 150. It's all about the risk level, guys. You need to identify your risk level, and that 150, if you had your stops, ideally you would stop out under the clouds here, and it did push. AMD is, by the way, our swing. It's our swing. That's but we also, this was a trade. This was a day trade idea as well. So let's talk about CELH. So CELH, guys, was it's for me it's a long-term investment place, but every day it's giving us a day two push. Let's look at day two level on CELH. So CELH was every day was 87 was the upside pivot, and once it breaks the 87, it's no looking back. CELH is a long, and I'm targeting like 9900 in few weeks, hopefully. But 100 soon. That was our trade. Beautiful trade since morning. I gave it in the day two. Every day I talk about it. So that was a beautiful trade as well. So let's talk about Boeing today. So Boeing was, strong. Initially that was a midday trade. Let me show you the levels on Boeing. So Boeing level was 179.26, 180.75. So once that level breaks, Boeing is strong, right? And then this was a midday flag breakout. So all you have to do is take the long once the pivot breaks, put your stops on the clouds, hold it, flag breakout, add more. And I did talk about BA flag when we were talking about this. Let's go there. So BA flag breakout, next leg on flag breakout. So just wanted to emphasize the levels that I provide in the morning and the pivot and the breakout. You always keep eye on what is strong, what is weak, so that's why we keep eyes on everything that is strong in the community. So that was. So let's talk about Hood. That was another kind of a loser. I mean, it was not really a loser, but my entry was not really a good at the open. And when it pushed to 1867, I was hoping for it to give it more to me, but then it breaks 512 and then it fades. So I had to take a loser and move on. That was a nice short though. It was a midday 512 short setup. So anyways, just wanted to recap a loser on Hood. Oracle was a beautiful trade in the community based upon our news board. So our news board was on top of Oracle when the news came with the Maersk, and you can see there news alert by Oracle at 12:01 p.m. Musk to rent servers for AI. Oracle pushes. I did tell everyone Oracle is good long scalps on those news. You always size 1/3, 1/4. And since the news came out, it ran really nicely from 118, 119 to 122. A lot of options went 100% for the traders. Pro did 100%, and SK did 100%. So a lot of good news bot trades in the community. Very proud of the community. That's why so much value we provide in our community and take these opportunities. So let's talk about some other day two. Day two, there were some other day two trades as well in community today. You was a good long over the 22 27 22/7 resistance pivot, but it failed again. Nice short in the midday. I didn't take it, but there was definitely a midday short. CVS was another day to fade. We've been watching it. I am watching it for a swing. So we'll see if it gives me a good entry. So you can see that CVS once that 56 level breaks, that's a nice short, just like we covered in the webinars. So just want to recap those. All right, guys. Now let's talk about SPY QQQ. What was happening on SPY QQQ? SPY QQQ in the morning was very choppy. Actually, I tried to long it, and it was so much chop. I lost on the couple of longs in the morning, and then I just left it alone. You see that SPY QQQ. You can see all my guidance here. So SPY, it was confirming the long, but then it was failed. So we kind of lost it, and it was frustrating in the morning. But you can see I told them that's going into the chop. I told everybody it's going chop. It's good for long scalps. That idea didn't work, but we got chopped there. But end of the day, when this curl happened, look at this alert: SPY QQQ 512 curls. Right, so that was, I told the community, and I told them that I'm not trading after the morning chop. You can trade it, and then I told people to focus on Apple and Microsoft. Look at this curl and look at this Microsoft curl. Went on the run. All you need to take is this 512 repeatable curl setup, take long, and then it was breaking out. And look here, I was talking about the QQQ breakout test, SPY going for the breakout. And there was the breakout. I even tweeted about this breakout. If you can go there and see my before and after, I can just quickly show you. I try to share ideas with the community and as well outside my Twitter followers as well. So you see, I'm telling everybody that we are going for a testing the range breakout. SPY is QQQ already breaking out, and look at this breakout, right? No hindsight, guys, right? Before and after. So these are the opportunities. When they come, you need to make use of them. SPY breakout, QQ flagging, and then it's beautiful trade. So personally, I scalped Microsoft, but you could trade SPY, QQQ. There was no trades before that, but this definitely was a trade because we know it's going to go to the upper range, right? This definitely was a trade because we know it's going to go to upper range. And then when it breaks out, you hold or you add more. This was a beautiful, beautiful breakout trade, guys. Beautiful breakout trade. You could have made decent money on the options on this breakout, even if you miss the 512 breakouts. But what I want to show you that is how, how I keep eyes on everything, and the day was going slow, and you could really capitalize on this move. End of the day, you could trade Apple. That's why I mentioned Apple, and that's why our morning ideas of NVDA, AMD kind of all pushed higher. So tomorrow is CPI. Don't know what's going to be, but it's going to be fun. Very excited for tomorrow. Thank you for watching the recap. I'll see you guys tomorrow. If you want to join the community, the links is in the description. Take care. Bye bye.